Death at Devil's Bridge. Chapter 15. How's old Toad going on? Oh, from bad to worse, said the rat gravely. Another smash-up early last week. How many has he had? Inquired the badger gloomily. Smashes or machines? Asked the rat. Well, after all, it's the same thing with Toad. Kenneth Graham, The Wind in the Willows. Patsy and Miss Penelope Marston arrived for dinner in the Marston coach. Patsy demure and lovely in turquoise silk, stout great-aunt Marston in fuzzy olive green with rows of ruffles around the neck and shoulders. So good of you to invite us, my dear Lady Catherine, Penelope Marston wheezed and seated herself with a thump on the sofa, taking up quite a bit of it. She glanced through her spectacles around the room. And where is that lovely boy this evening? He will be here, won't he? He has absented himself from our evenings at Marston Manor a good deal lately. If you mean Mr. Rolls, Kate said, as Patsy suppressed a smile, he is with Sir Charles in the library, where we are expecting a number of other gentlemen. We three are the only ladies. The elder Miss Marston positively beamed, and Kate thought to herself that Lady Henrietta, if she had wanted to keep Patsy safe from the attentions of male admirers, would have done better to have her locked up than to leave her in the care of a short-sighted spinsteress great-aunt. Kate wondered whether the lady, with her ample bosom, pudgy cheeks, and girlish giggle, had ever had any suitors of her own. A few moments later, the gentlemen came to pay their respects. Maud appeared with a sherry decanter, and even though there were shy several guests, the festivities were begun. The motorcar drivers, however handsome they might be in their evening dress, were a surly, argumentative lot who downed their drink rather too rapidly for any hostess's comfort. Within 5 minutes, Kate had no doubt that the evening would end in a disaster, although at that moment she would have predicted a social fiasco, perhaps augmented by a culinary catastrophe. Neither she nor Charles, nor anyone else of the party for that matter, could have foreseen exactly what was to come about, although one or two might have guessed it. Frank Ponsonby, newly released from the Manningtree jail through the intercession of Lord Bradford and Constable Lakin, wore the same sulky, thwarted look he must have worn during his fateful encounter with the geese. The Bents had not fared quite as well as Ponsonby, and remained in Manningtree awaiting repair. Arthur Dixon, his cravat askew, drank off 2 sherries quickly and began on a third, obviously trying to erase from his mind the ignominy of being towed back to Bishop's Keep behind a team of horses, the Serpollet having run off the road at Wheelie Heath and had ruptured its low-hanging condenser on a stump. Arnold Bateman arrived already strongly fortified with liquor. He bounced himself on his toes before the fireplace, rising up and down like a bantam rooster preparing to crow. "What I want to know," he said, pronouncing each word with elaborate care, "is what has become," he hiccuped, "what has become of our dear friend Harry Dunstable." He made a sound that sounded to Kate like a chortle. "Serve him right if something happened to him, wouldn't you say?" "Bateman," Ponsonby said, "mind your tongue." "He drank enough last night to float the Navy," Dixon remarked acidly. "And when our supper party broke off, he ordered another bottle of wine to take off to bed with him. Did anyone check his room at the inn? He's still there sleeping it off, I should think." "That's odd," Bradford remarked thoughtfully. "I didn't notice that Dunstable drank more than the rest of us." "Well, he did," Ponsonby growled, "like the proverbial fish. You're at the other end of the table, Marston. You probably didn't notice." Dixon cleared his throat nervously. "It's Albrecht I'm worried about." He pulled his brows together. "The man should have returned by now. There have been no reports of trouble. He hasn't arrived at the landing site, or in that vicinity." Rolls shook his head. "If he had put in an appearance there by tea time, the men we left behind would have telegraphed." He turned. "Your telegraph operator is reliable, I take it, Sir Charles?" Great-aunt Marston answered for him. "Oh, quite reliable, Mr. Rolls, I assure you. We have excellent telegraph service here. You know, quite excellent." Kate smiled to herself, thinking the punctilious Mr. Rushton who would offer up his life if he missed so much as a syllable of a telegraph message. Bateman, who was paying no attention to this exchange, gave a high-pitched giggle. "You're worried about Albrecht, Arthur. I don't believe that for a minute, old chap. You were the one who—" He gestured with his glass, spilling sherry on Ponsonby. "Whoops," he said, and giggled again. "So clumsy of me, Ponsonby, old fellow." "Have it, Bateman," Ponsonby said crossly, dabbing at his sleeve. "Sit down and be quiet. We haven't enough of your oafishness." You don't suppose they're going to go on like this all night, do you? Patsy whispered to Kate. I certainly hope not, Kate said grimly. She was about to ring the bell for Mudd to inquire when dinner might be served, when the door opened and Mudd himself stepped in. Ah, Mudd, Kate said with relief. So dinner is ready at last. Not quite yet, my lady, Mudd said, although Mrs. Pratt has sent word that the fillet is making satisfactory progress. In the meantime, he raised his voice and clicked his heels together. Dr. Bassett, Mr. Dunstable. Ah, Charles said happily. I was wondering what had kept the good doctor. And it's about time Dunstable showed up, I should say, Bradford growled. Kate rose to greet the latest arrival, but she was so startled at the sight of Harry Dunstable that she could think of nothing to say except, "Oh my." Around the room she heard several gasps and something like a squeal from Great Aunt Marston. Charles stepped forward. Looks like you met with a bit of an accident, Dunstable. Got up in the blue serge jacket of the Motor Car Club, Harry Dunstable may have looked like a Swiss admiral when Kate was first introduced to him. Now, though, he had the colour of a badly stored Swiss cheese, his face a mottled yellow, his temple bruised, his right eye blackened, his jaw swollen. The yellow and purple on his face vied with the yellow and green in his embroidered waistcoat, which was draped with a gold watch chain. Unfortunately, yes, Dunstable said thickly, speaking through nearly closed lips. But the doctor says I've suffered no serious harm. Dr. Bassett nodded. I happened to be at the livery stable putting up my horse when Mr. Dunstable was, uncovered. Kate saw the ghost of a twinkle in his sharp eye. She liked the acerbic, quick-witted Dr. Bassett, who stopped in frequently to discuss the scientific interests that he and Charles shared. He accompanied me back to my surgery, he added, and I gave him a good looking over. He is fit, except for the obvious damage. Uncovered? Rolls asked, his jaw dropping in astonishment. For God's sake, Dunstable, what has happened to you? Dunstable looked sheepish. I went out for my usual walk last evening after dinner. 2 men waylaid me on the alley and coshed me. He put a hand to his temple. Coshed you? Dixon exclaimed. "'Pon my word, Dunstable, that's appalling. Pity, Bateman added in a mocking tone. Jolly shame, Ponsonby remarked carelessly. Kate turned. All 3 men wore looks of concern, but it did not seem to her that there was any genuine compassion in their eyes. On the contrary, she thought she detected a fleeting amusement at the idea that the self-styled great man had met such an ignominious fate. But Kate knew very well that Englishmen were accomplished at masking their feelings, and when she looked again she saw nothing out of the ordinary. "But where have you been since last night, Harry?" Bradford demanded harshly. "You were supposed to ride with Albrecht in the Daimler. He had to go off without you." "Mr. Dunstable," the doctor said, "was discovered under a tarpaulin on the dung heap behind the livery stable. His hands and feet were tightly bound, his mouth gagged. He'd been there throughout the night and day. Trussed like a turkey." Dunstable shook his head. "Couldn't move, couldn't shout, could barely breathe for the stench. Begging your pardon, ma'am," he added, bowing in Kate's direction. "I fear this is a topic that's hardly fit for a lady's ears." He turned eagerly to Bradford. "Albrecht won the chase, I suppose?" Ponsonby coughed, Dixon glowered, and Bateman narrowed his eyes. Bradford cleared his throat. He said, "Nobody won." He coughed. "That is, nobody finished the chase. Reached the balloon, I mean to say." "That's not true, Bradford," Patsy said brightly. "We did. Lady Catherine and I, that is," she added, turning to Dunstable with a rustle of silken skirts. "When it appeared that the balloon might sail out over the ocean and be lost, you see, we appropriated Mr. Rose Peugeot and Lady Catherine drove it to—" "Lost!" Dunstable ejaculated. "But it was a borrowed balloon. The expense will be monstrous." No, it wasn't really lost," Kate said. "The grappling iron was left behind, and—" "It was not left behind," Rolls exclaimed hotly. "It was stolen by someone who wished us to be forced to crash-land the balloon." "Well, stolen then," Kate said. "Miss Marston and I feared that Sir Charles and Mr. Rolls might not be able to land safely. So we drove out and rescued them." Patsy said with pride. She lifted her chin. "As it turned out, we were the only ones to get to the landing site. We have the photographs to prove that we were there," she added. "Or at least we will have them tomorrow when I have developed and printed them." Dunstable stared incomprehendingly. "None of the men completed the chase?" "Not one," Bateman said and shook his head. "I lost power near Mistley. Dixon ran into a stump and ripped open the condenser. Ponsonby," he sniggered, "Ponsonby drove into a flock of geese. I was detained at Manning Tree by an overzealous PC who charged me with excessive speed," Ponsonby said with dignity. "The geese were superfluous." But what about Albrecht? Dunstable demanded. He looked around angrily. The man was supposed to win. That's why we arranged this blasted affair. Where the devil is he? Did he quit and go back to Germany? What has happened to the Daimler? Bradford gave a helpless shrug. No one knows. I haven't heard a peep from the fellow, Ponsonby added. He frowned. Supposed to win, was he? I shouldn't worry about him, Bateman said cheerily. If something happened, we should have received word by now, unless... The door opened, and Mudd appeared. Ah, Mudd, is dinner ready to be served at last? Dinner is ready to be served, ma'am, Mudd said, but there is a boy at the door. He's brought a note requesting the doctor's presence with regard to a professional murder. He held out a silver platter on which lay a slip of torn white paper. It's Mrs. Gotemüller, I suppose, said the doctor with a sigh, reaching for the note. She's about to deliver her 7th and another girl, no doubt. Her 7th child, murmured Great-Aunt Marston in a shocked voice. She opened her eyes wide. Fancy that! But as Dr. Bassett opened the note and read it, his face changed. It's from Laken, he said to Charles. I must go immediately. I'm sorry to take you from your guests, but I think it would be a good plan for you to accompany me. Charles had come to stand beside Kate. What is it, Bassett? He asked quietly. What has happened? Read it for yourself, the doctor said, and handed him the note. He glanced around. You might as well read it to the others too. They shall all want to know, I'm sure. Charles unfolded the paper. Come to your surgery at once and bring Sir Charles, he read aloud. As Kate read over his shoulder. There has been a motor car accident. The driver is alive, barely. I doubt he can survive long. The motor car is demolished. Kate pulled in an involuntary breath. Patsy gave a small, half-smothered shriek. The driver sat for an instant in stunned, staring silence. And then Dunstable started to his feet. Albrecht, he cried. It is not Albrecht, is it? Tell me it isn't Albrecht. Don't be a fool, Dunstable, Bateman said with immense scorn. Are there any other motor cars but Marston's Daimler unaccounted for in the district? Dr. Bassett was already at the door. Forgive me, Lady Catherine, he said with a quick bow. We must be off, he added to Charles. There's not a moment to lose. I will go with you, Bradford said, white-faced. It is my vehicle. Yes, Dunstable gabbled. I must go too. He is my driver. White-faced, Dixon put down his sherry. We will all go, he said, sounding almost frightened, and there was a loud babble of agreement. The doctor raised his voice. Gentlemen, he said firmly, my surgery will not accommodate the lot of you. You can be of no possible assistance in this medical matter. Your hostess has prepared a fine meal. It would be cruelly impolite of you to abandon it. Charles came to Kate. You can manage it, my dear, he asked quietly. Bradford can take my place as host. Of course we'll manage, Kate said, with more assurance than she felt, and watched them all leave the room. There was a long silence, broken at last by Great-Aunt Marston's loud exhalation. Well, she said, I must say. But whatever she had to say, she did not, in fact, say it. The silence lengthened. Kate knew that she should rise, take Bradford's arm, and announce that it was time to go to the table, but something, some deep curiosity, some inner conviction that there was something here to learn, held her in her seat, watching the faces in the room. Dunstable sat too, as if thunderstruck. It is beyond belief, he muttered, utterly beyond belief. What are the stockholders going to say? He bit his lip. It is all very bad indeed. Oh, blast the stockholders, Rhodes burst out angrily, his dark eyes glittering. Is that all you can think of, Dunstable? We came here for sport, to test one machine against the others. What did you come for? The publicity only? Dunstable looked at him. Publicity? Yes, that's certainly an angle that should be considered, he said thoughtfully. The event will attract plenty of press attention, I'm sure. The trick will be to handle it correctly. He looked around. Has Sam Holt gone back to London? Where the devil is that journalist when I need him? What bloody nonsense, Harry, Bradford exclaimed, his voice heavy with disgust and revulsion. The man you paid to come here from Germany to drive for you is dying, dead already perhaps, and you talk of publicity. And why should his accident be beyond belief, Dixon added, rising to reach for the sherry decanter. It is not Albrecht's first crash, is it? Given the speeds at which we travel, motorcar racing is a dangerous sport. Nervously, he splashed sherry into his glass and onto his sleeve. Yes, Ponsonby said, with a melodramatic flair. Death waits at every turn. Accidents can happen everywhere. He lifted his glass. Gentlemen, let us drink to a fallen comrade in arms. Hear, hear, Bateman murmured, draining his glass quickly, and Dixon added in a strangled voice. Indeed. There was a moment of silence. Dunstable raised his head. His eyes were narrowed, and the purplish bruise stood out against the mottled yellow of his face. It was no accident, he said melodramatically. He paused and then repeated in a harsh, rasping tone. I'm sure of it. It was no accident. I shall take this to the law. Kate frowned. What did the man have in mind? Was he practicing some sort of sensational gesture that would attract public attention? Would he somehow exploit this unfortunate circumstance to sell more shares of worthless stock? Or did he genuinely believe that... I'm not sure I understand you, Mr. Dunstable, she said. Surely you can't think Herr Albrecht would have deliberately endangered his life by crashing Lord Marston's motor car. She glanced at Bradford, who seemed remarkably composed given the circumstances. Of course I don't think he did it deliberately, Dunstable said. It was murder. His voice rose. It was murder. Don't you see? He was looking directly at Bradford. Bradford colored. Are you trying to claim there was something wrong with my car and that I... Don't even bother to answer him, Bradford, Rolls snapped. He's behaving like an offensive cat. Ah, Ponsonby remarked, his tone archly pleasant. I fear there is dissension in the rank of the British Motor Car Syndicate. My gentlemen, is this a wrangle? The syndicate has nothing to do with this affair, Ponsonby, Rolls said in a dark tone. Oh, but it does, Bateman said and laughed slyly. You're such a naive boy, Charlie. The syndicate has everything to do with it. Why don't you ask your friend Dunstable if he staged Albrecht's crash himself for the sake of publicity? Don't forget, he was supposed to be in that car too. If he knew that it was going to crash, is there any wonder that he went missing? That is base canard, Dunstable said haughtily. I spent the entire day in a dung heap. I had nothing to do with... And Albrecht was driving Marston's car, don't forget, Ponsonby said with a meaningful slide to Bateman. Could they have come up with this in between the two of them? Patsy pulled in her breath, and Great Aunt Marston gasped in horror, fanning herself with a lace handkerchief. Bradford, can this man... I cannot pay him compliment of calling him a gentleman, be accusing you of... She apparently could not think of what Bradford might be accused of and sputtered into a helpless silence. Bradford got to his feet and spoke with firm authority. I do not believe we are showing ourselves to the best advantage here, gentlemen. The evening is, after all, a social occasion. Lady Catherine and the other ladies would be entirely justified in censuring our behaviour. Kate, too, had begun to feel that things were getting out of hand, although she was reluctant to conclude a conflict which offered such promising revelations. But perhaps the dinner hour would open some new view of the subject. With a bright smile she stood and turned toward Bradford. I understand that our dinner is ready at last, my lord. Shall we dine? As they went into the dining room, Kate looked questioningly at Maud, wondering whether he remembered her instructions about the crystal and what was to be done with it after dinner. He inclined his head slightly, and she understood. Everything else in the household might run on the 6s and 7s, but Beryl Bothwell's little experiment was proceeding according to plan.